So when you start thinking of intersectionality and words paint pictures. So people think doctor, especially in a Eurocentric world, they see a white man in a white coat, right? And then you're a Black woman. And then now you're talking about holistic medicine. So now they push you all the way down to being a voodoo doctor.
I am a quack and a scam artist and all the things.
And so you're totally against the norm. We'll discuss race and how it plays a factor and how we didn't even talk about this topic because we were afraid.
A Black executive perspective.
We are coming to you live from the new BEP studio for another thought-provoking episode of a Black Executive Perspective podcast, a safe space where we discuss all matters related to race, culture, and those uncomfortable topics people tend to avoid. I'm your host, Tony Tidbit. So before we get started in today's episode, I want to give a friendly reminder to all of our audience to make sure you check out our partners at Code M Magazine, whose mission is saving the Black family by first saving the Black man. So definitely check them out at codemmagazine.com. That is codemmagazine.com. Chronic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease are disproportionately impacting Black lives. Today, we explore how redefining success, breaking free from quick fixes, and embracing holistic approaches can transform not only our health, but our wealth as well. Joining us is a trailblazer in this field, Dr. Erica Steele, who will help us discuss these issues and more. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Erica Steele. She is a board certified naturopathic doctor with over 2 decades of expertise in holistic medicine. As the visionary founder of the Holistic Life app, she revolutionized wellness by seamlessly integrating advanced technologies with ancestral healing practices. Her illustrious career is marked by spearheading healthcare innovation, crafting comprehensive, integrative treatment plans, and addressing traumas at the nexus of psychonumerology, ancestral lineage, and contemporary stressors. Dr. Steele's influence extends beyond her clinical practice. She is a media expert, having been featured on prestigious platforms such as The Doctors and Psychology Today. As a staunch advocate for cultural relevant healthcare solutions, she tirelessly promotes health literacy within underserved communities. Her innovative spirit shines through her development of tools that empower individuals to reclaim their health and connect with their roots. Dr. Steele epitomizes a comprehensive approach to addressing health inequities and empowering communities. Dr. Erica Steele, welcome to a Black Executive Perspective podcast, my sister.
Yes, thank you for having me. Definitely.
Well,
what a warm welcome.
Well, thank you for being here. And I'm going to be honest with you. I got like a little something in my throat. So I'm glad we're having this. We're talking today because you may be able to give me some remedies.
Exactly.
Make sure that I can start talking normal again, right?
Yes, exactly. Lots of different teas, I'm sure.
Lots of teas, whatever. I'm open to all of them, especially with somebody with your pedigree, your background, your expertise. So very excited to dive in. So before we get into the deep, heavy stuff, tell us a little bit about where you're currently residing and a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so I live in St. Lucia, the beautiful island of St. Lucia.
Wow.
In the West Indies. I live with my husband, and we just enjoy life. You know, I have adult daughter who lives back in the States, but I've kind of done all the mommy thing and the PTA thing, and the career thing and the 50 billion directions thing. And so really this stage of our life is really about building our legacy, building connection, and really building greater community, and reaching out, really giving back to the community.
That is beautiful. I mean, so listen, one of the dreams for a lot of people is that they could get rid of the hustle and bustle, and then go to an island and then live happily ever after on an island. You're there.
So, I am.
I'm not reading this in a book. You're actually doing it. So real quickly, tell us a little bit about St. Lucia. I know a lot of people go there for vacation, but how is it to live there, especially as an American citizen?
Yeah, so St. Lucia was colonized by the French initially, and then later colonized by the English, and then the English eventually they won their independence in the 70s. But we're still living in post-colonization. I know most people definitely see it as, you know, a tourist attraction, and it is very much about tourism. But specifically, St. Lucia is, it has so much nature, it has so much beauty. So we have like the sulfur springs, we have the pitons, you know, we have different, you know, plants that grow here, like your noni and your soursop. So these are things that are all very natural. You know, our air, our food, our water is significantly healthier than, let's say, a more westernized, industrialized country like America. I would say definitely a learning curve as a American. This is my first time living abroad, so yeah, I've traveled all over the world in different places, and so it was definitely, I think, the first year of, you know, because we're brainwashed with American nationalism. You know, we're the greatest. We do it all the best. We,
So
you know,
true.
so I
So,
had to like detox from all
so
that.
true.
You know, so
So true.
so that took a while. You know, because being in business for so long and having an MBA and all of that, you know, business in America and business in St. Lucia are two different businesses.
Right,
I mean,
right.
just a snapshot. You know, they still use the old school bank books. You know, like they like pull it out, and I mean, you know, so definitely it took a lot of adjustment. I find gratitude in the simple things where, you know, in the busyness of the United States, you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to
Right,
hold on.
right.
So you don't have a moment to even stop, breathe, enjoy. And so here I'm afforded so much more of that, which I'm grateful for.
That is awesome. And look, it fits in terms of what you do too, when you talk about holistic medicine and spirituality and stuff to that nature. So, which we would definitely want to hear more about. So, my question, look, you know, we just went through your background.
Yeah.
You are world renowned. People know you all over. Like I said, you've been on major media platforms. You have 7 different, I believe, degrees. You've written so many different articles, books. You're all over the place. And I know you're chilling in St. Lucia, right, to get away from the rat race. But at the end of the day, you've been on a million platforms. So the question I
Yeah.
have, why did you want to come on BEP to discuss this topic?
Well, I wanted to come because your demographic, you specifically target Black professionals, right? And we as Black professionals, I believe we need the most support, especially now. It does not matter how many degrees we have. It doesn't matter how many accolades we have. It doesn't really matter how many letters we have behind our name, because we're still Black at the end of the day. And there is a challenge, okay? Because
So true.
there's
So
a
true.
certain unconscious bias and awareness that just does not seem to see any of the rest of it, you know?
Right, right,
And so I really wanted to come on to give a voice to professionals that are under immense pressure, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, trying to perform under impossible circumstances, right? And so for me, I can totally identify that. It became a pressure cooker for me. The demands couldn't be high enough, right? And while people can say, well, those are self-imposed, not really. You know, we it is true, we as Black people, especially Black women, we have to work twice as hard to get what, half as far, right? That is a belief system that is ingrained in our culture. And so for me, I made a very radical decision. And again, I'm very much a very spiritual person. So me being in St. Lucia was kismet. I did not want to come here. I'd love to say that I did, and it was all this beautiful. No, I remember when I first met my husband, the first thing I said to him is, I'm not moving here. I just want you to know. So, but it was really because I could not survive and thrive under the scrutiny of being a Black young doctor in the South. And especially being a
right.
holistic doctor, because I'm up against, you know, a myriad of
Mainstream.
systems. It's not
Yeah,
even just one.
right.
So I think for me, you know, it's having stepped out of everything, right? Being able to reflect, deconstruct, and then being able to bring that wisdom back to, you guys and be like, here, take these nuggets and take them with you, and hopefully that will help you transform your life too.
Well, number one, thank you for being a giver. I mean, everything you just got finished saying, there's a whole podcast just on that paragraph that you just got finished articulating. So I totally appreciate that you're willing to share and educate. So you ready to talk about it, Dr. Steele?
Yes. Yes,
All right.
indeed.
All right, my friend, let's talk about it. So, when you and I first met, we had a conversation and I was talking about, some of the things that, as Black Americans, that we deal with. And the first thing you said, which it took me a while. I think we even got into a little tiff a little bit when you said, well, we got to redefine what success means. Mm-hmm. Okay. And, so, and then we got through it, and then I marinated on it. And then once we had a conversation, I definitely understood where you were coming from. And you kind of spoke a little bit about it when I asked you about the question in terms of why did you want to come on BEP, right? So why don't let's kick it off from there, because obviously you just got finished saying, being in the United States is the rat race.
Yeah.
We were taught, when we're little kids, our parents teach us that we have to work twice as hard. And to get half as far. Those aren't things that are made up, right? These are things that this first time I met you was a few months ago, and this first time you said it, and you said the same thing that your parents brought you up with, same thing my parents brought me up with, right? However, all that being said, we go out and we try to do that. And we do try to accomplish or add all the different, either from a degree standpoint or from a title standpoint, all the things that we think is going to make us successful in corporate America. All right. And at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. I mean, you could be a federal judge and get pulled over. All right. And it's not even a big deal, right? You can be a senator. So let's start where you talked about we have to redefine success for health and wealth. Speak to us a little bit about what you mean by that.
Yeah, so it's challenging because we have a very Eurocentric view of success. And what do I mean by a Eurocentric view? I mean one that's defined by how much money you have in your bank account, how many letters you have behind your name, how much prestige or accomplishments that you have done. And it doesn't leave room for all of the various different dynamics and different people and multiple intelligences that are involved in building a society. It's very much an individualized model. It's a one person gets up while they, punch down on all of these other people. And so it's not sustainable, right? Part of the reason that I have so many degrees is because, well, I think at one point, in my life and later on it changed as I began to mature and evolve, but it was just wanting to be seen and wanting to be heard. And even, and my story is not unique. I was a very brilliant child, a writing prodigy, and that was almost an anomaly, right? As a little Black girl, right? It's right, like, well, what do you mean? You're good in English, you're good in writing, this, and so that
Phyllis Wheatley type situation.
Yeah, right, exactly. But then early on in first grade, right? And this is like kindergarten. So then all of a sudden first grade, they have you doing all the testing and now, they put you in the special school and all of a sudden away we go, the demands. So for me, I was like queued up and pretty much being groomed in this Eurocentric definition of success. And so I was constantly reaching for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And, resilience is one thing, right? But we are running up against systems that literally want to see us fail and want to steal what we have to offer, our intellectual property, wants to maybe give us back a little something in return, but it's just not sustainable long term. So for me, years and years and years, and I'll be kind of frank, in my private practice, I had a family practice for 15 years in Virginia. And I like to say I became the most well-paid house Negro that money could buy, because I I just wanted that acceptance, that approval, that, don't you know I can help you. I was telling
Look at me. I've made it.
yes, I
Right.
did it,
Yeah.
but I would still, have the little old grand lady who wants to call me Erica and look me up and down like, this is my doctor kind of thing, or people assume, oh, I'm the nurse waiting for the doctor to come in, so I began to have to go, all right, I need a head check, because if I keep looking for the external world to define who I am and my value and my worth, I'm going to continue to pretty much emotionally starve myself, because I can never.
Can you stop right there? Because I want to dive into this, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to back up to what you said a minute ago, and it speaks specifically to this. You said a few minutes ago that no matter how many degrees I got, no matter what my prestige was, there's systems that set up to stop me, steal intellectual power, IP, right? All those type things, right? So speak to that a little bit as you go into exactly you being the highest paid, colored woman, Negro woman as a doctor, and all you had all these degrees, but at some points, and you made money, but at some points it didn't even matter.
Mm-mm. No, because they make you fight for what you have. So there's always a trap door, right? So not only as a doctor, I'm a holistic doctor, which is very specialized, right? There are not very many, what's the last holistic doctor of? Dr. Sebi, right? Other than that, most of you don't see them, right? There is a reason for that. And so they really don't want Black people's liberation in healthcare. Quite honestly, they want to keep us sick and dependent upon a broken system. And so for me, it was just, I'm constantly fighting up against a battle. When I came to Virginia, Virginia was very conservative. They have a big medical system there. The medical system was really scared that I was there, because they thought I was going to tell people crazy things, like, I don't know, whatever. And so I had that. I also was dealing with the Bible Belt, right? Who's thinking that, I'm somehow stepping across Jesus, teaching people how to be well. So I'm dealing with that, right? And then just dealing with so much unconscious bias and microaggressions. It was actually a Navajo clinical assistant that I had who actually taught me what a microaggression was. Mm-hmm. And that was years after I had been experiencing them, right? And you don't realize it in terms of your mental health. It just goes over and over and over again. So, I was up against a lot already. Mind you, I had no idea, what I was up against. I'm just like, right? And then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, this stuff, like I would be like, for instance, the medical board knew me by first name basis. Oh, okay, we're getting our monthly call. OSHA, organizations that I've never even heard of. Now all of a sudden I need to be in compliance with, right? There was so much external resistance. Just my Google reviews alone. I'm a scam artist. I'm a this, I'm a that. I have mental health issues, you name it. And really, it's because I speak truth to power.
It's time to rethink your protein. AgileLab's protein bars are crafted with high-quality protein, double the leucine, and enriched branched-chain amino acids, essential for optimal muscle recovery. Finally, a protein bar that works as hard as you do. So visit agilelabs.com and use the code BEP to get 20% off. That's agilelabs.com, promo code BEP.
And this is more about you because you're a holistic doctor. Was
it's multiple, right? Okay. So there's intersectionality, right? So let's look at our intersectionality.
Okay, got you. Yeah, yep. Go ahead.
So I think if I was a woman, right, and then all the other things like things that the society deems as normal. Okay, so let's look at what society deems as normal. That Eurocentric, right? So a white male would be considered a doctor, Dr. Goldberg. Correct. Or whoever.
With a white jacket on, right?
Correct, exactly. So I'm definitely not that. So I get, a peg down because I'm not a male, right? I get a peg down because, I'm not white too. Actually, a lot of pegs down, right? But then I'm literally counter. We just go straight to hell. So then the counter on top of that, right, we have the fact that, oh, you're totally counter this system. You're not even, because my thing was, and the whole reason that I got into this is because my mother got sick really early on as a child. My mother was a cancer researcher for NIH and got sick. And I saw firsthand how the healthcare system was not going to help. And so I was like, lockstep in tow with her, running around labs and going to classes with her at an early age. And I knew I wanted to be a doctor, and I researched the different doctors. And I knew that Rockefeller had his hand in conventional medicine. And so early on, I made the decision to protect our natural healing practices and become a natural doctor. Now, again, right, I think Disney had a lot to do with it, because I said, oh, this is so beautiful. Everybody's just going to love me and accept it. And, I'm going to be open with welcome arms as some sort of savior for the healthcare community. And it's going to be great. Yeah, no. So what happened was I was constantly uphill until it got me to the door of legislation, where I had to fight for what I have, because you're getting a little bit too big for your britches now. There's too many zeros behind those numbers. So now and also you're helping people at the same time. So you cannot be helping people and turning a profit. No, absolutely not. That's not going to work.
Right. One of the things though, because you just had me, I started laughing, because not at you, but I see exactly what you were saying, right? So when you start thinking of intersectionality, and words paint pictures. So people think doctor, especially in a Eurocentric world, they see a white man in a white coat, right? And then you're a Black woman. And then now you're talking about holistic medicine. So now they push you all the way down to being a voodoo doctor.
I am a quack and a scam artist and all the things.
And so you're totally against the norm. So
Yes.
Let's do this though. What does redefining success look like, right? So obviously you've taken some steps, but from like a family standpoint,
Yes.
What does that look like so people can grasp as they listen and watch this and actually see that picture in their mind?
Yes. So we definitely have to switch our mindset. Number one, we are a society that's driven off the quick fix solution. We are always looking for the quick thing to get it done really quick so that we can get back to our regularly scheduled program. And years after year after year of neglect eventually is going to lead to disease. So the first thing is not everything has to be an emergency, number one. But number two, there has to be prioritization of both mental as well as emotional health. And that's before you eat the first vegetable, take the first walk or workout, drink the first glass of water. Why? Because your mindset is what's actually going to fuel your actions and your behaviors and your long-term lifestyle. And if you're in a family system, either you're going it alone and hoping that others follow, or you're getting buy-in from everybody in the house. And buy-in can look very different for everybody, right? I've known some family systems where they go in and they throw out all the unhealthy foods and replace it with all healthy, and they say, this is our new diet, right? I don't recommend that. It's almost like shock therapy. But we do need to have conversations about our relationship with health. Because most of the time, the relationship with health is reactive. What medications am I on? What surgeries have I had? It's never how much water have I drank today? How many grams of protein have I eaten? How many steps have I gotten? Are we talking about, my frustration or anger? Are we talking about, perhaps the stress I'm having at work or whatever, right? So I think we tend to give lip service to the mental and the emotional part, not really understanding the significance that it plays on your physical health.
So just so I'm clear here, right? So from a mental standpoint, how should we prepare ourselves mentally? Because you just got finished saying throwing everything out immediately, and then, and which is another quick fix thing, right? We're going to stop eating this, right? And we know human beings are creatures of habit.
Yes.
So they're going to eventually come back to that unless they have something to replace with. So when you say mental, how should we formulate our minds? Is it thinking about, to your point, everything around me that I've been doing is not working. Maybe I need to focus more internally on me. Talk a little bit about that so people have a starting A to go with.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, I feel like even on a subconscious level, we hope that somebody's going to save us, right? Whether that is, I'm serious, we do.
No,
And
I'm not disagreeing with you. This is where we set up,
Yes.
and I want to go a little bit deeper than that in a second. But finish your thought.
Yes, exactly. We literally subconsciously believe somebody's going to save us, whether that is a healthcare system, whether that is a doctor, whether that is a spouse, whether that is a fill in the blank. So the first thing is recognizing nobody's going to come. Okay, nobody's coming. We have got to rescue ourselves, which means we're 100% responsible for our choices, which that's going to bump up against all kinds of things. And I'm sure lots of listeners are calling me all kinds of names, but I will say this, the truth will first piss you off and then it will set you free.
Right.
So the first thing is we've got to stop looking outside of ourselves for the answers, but also for the solution as well. We as Black people, we are the oldest people that have been on the planet. We are the wisest. Black women, we are the creators of all life. And so we have to stop seeking that Eurocentric external validation and come into self, because all the answers that we seek are self. As long as we begin to quiet our mind down, begin with a practice like a simple meditation, 5 to 10, 15 minutes a day, to get our minds in that pathway, getting prepared and ready to do the other actions that are going to be required in order to sustain our health.
Got it. You know, one of the things and I was thinking about this, that's tough, right? Because when you think of health, medicine, you think of traditional Eurocentric methods. I'll go to the doctor, they'll look at me, they'll diagnose me, and then they'll prescribe me, right?
Yeah.
And then once you get caught up in that, then some people become, what's that old term, hypochondriacs, right? Where now there's always an issue. All right. And the only way they can get better is by the doctor's got to prescribe them something, right? And at the end of the day, if there's been studies that they've given people placebos, right? And then they're like, oh, I feel better. But it really wasn't any medicine. So when you have that mindset, right, that I'm gonna run till I can't run no more. And then when I run out of steam, I'm gonna go to the doctor. They're gonna look at me. They're gonna prescribe something, give me some pills, and then I'm gonna be good. That's a long way away from, I own everything. I'm accountable for me.
Yes.
Nobody's gonna save me. I got to make sure that I take care of myself mentally, spiritually, physically, right? That's a huge jump here.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And some people ain't even on the same platform, right? Mm-hmm. So how do we because if you've been on that wheel running, and then all of a sudden you listen to a Black Executive Perspective podcast and you listen to Dr. Steele, and she's saying, look, nobody gonna save you. How do we take little bitty steps? And you talk meditation for a second, but tell us how we can take little bitty steps so we can start moving in that direction.
Definitely. So the first thing I want to start off with is statistics, so we understand so what is driving our healthcare cost, right? What's driving the healthcare cost is chronic disease, right? So hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, lifestyle conditions that have modifiable factors. Modifiable are things that we have control over. Okay. So this is statistically, right? Because a lot of times there's going to be resistance regardless, right? Because you're making a change. So I just want to put that framework in there for all the statisticians out there who want, who need that. Yes.
Because those things are controllable, right? Yes. Hypertension, diabetes, stuff like that. So go for it.
Well, controllable. Yes. So again, in a Eurocentric perspective, remember, I am responsible for nothing, right? I'm just going to go through my life, right? And then it's just going to happen out of nowhere. I'm just going to catch the hypertension out of nowhere. I'm going to just catch the high cholesterol out of nowhere. I'm going to catch the diabetes out of nowhere. Doesn't have anything to do with the fried fish that I eat every single night. Doesn't have anything to do with the Coca-Cola that I'm drinking. Doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I'm doing these long crashes where I'm eating and then not eating. It has nothing to do with any of my lifestyle factors. It's just luck of the draw. And
Preach, my girl,
unfortunately,
preach.
unfortunately, your conventional doctor is going to reinforce that. They reinforce it with a couple of things. Oh, these things just happen. It's genetic. Genetics only accounts for less than 30% of all lifestyle conditions. We're sorry. I know we're boxing people in because they're looking for the excuse. They're looking for the out. But I got all the statistics and the facts. Like, so genetics, it's not cutting it, right? So we know that
Right.
piece of it. So a lot of times family systems pass down lifestyle habits, right?
Right.
So if mama ate mac and cheese and catfish every night, then guess what? I'm eating mac and cheese and catfish every night, wondering why I've got hypertension, diabetes. You know what I'm saying?
Not even thinking that. Not even thinking it.
No,
Right?
of course, no. And we're also dealing with post-traumatic slave syndrome that Dr. Joy brought up. And so we're still living that high-fat slave diet. And so, and we, all the things. We just had Thanksgiving, whether you celebrate or not. There were people who were loading it up with the ham and the fat backs and the this and the that and all the things. All the things, right? I mean, come on now. So deep fried. So it was not until, oh my gosh, so funny story. So, I was in Southern California. I grew up partially in Southern California. So I went to high school out there, the whole thing. So I left California and went and became a doctor in Virginia. Okay. So I was a raw food vegan when I left California. Okay. And then when I crash landed in Virginia, right, I was like, there was hardly any food. They didn't have any natural food places, very few. It was like a food desert in a lot of ways. I know that sounds funny, but all of a sudden I became like super rigid to, oh, great, you only ate fast food twice this week. Oh, okay. So, all right. So we're not going to eat the deep fried Twinkies. That's probably too much fat in your diet. I really had to learn where people were at. So you really want to start right where you're at. And I find that instead of going, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that, because that's negative psychology, you're never going to work. You're never going to get out of that. It's better if you add things, right? So meditation, you're adding that to clear your mind and get your nervous system more relaxed, to build more clarity, right? You're intending your day, both from a mental perspective, but also how you want to feel. You can simply do an intention meditation where you're saying you go through all your to-do list, but not just from I need to get this done, but how do I want to feel as I'm going through this? Because I surely don't want to feel rushed and stressed and all of this. Right. And I also want to add water, right? Half my body weight in ounces in water every single day, right? And when I'm drinking, I'm going to affirm I love how I feel, right? Because when I love how I feel, I'm going to continue to do that. And then I'm going to focus on adding protein. Why protein? Because protein helps my body to repair and heal. So you see, a holistic lifestyle is about ease. It's not about making it more difficult and now there's more things you have to put on your to-do list. People that teach you that, they're charlatans. They don't know what they're doing. And so and they're not really doing it in their normal life. When you are truly living a holistic and an aligned lifestyle, it is one of ease and grace and flow. It is not one of resistance and stress and strife. If there is that in place, then that means you're working too hard and you're doing too much and you need to go sit down somewhere.
Right. It's interesting. So I love this conversation. I mean, we can talk about this for days because I can go so many different places. Let me just share a couple of stories with you. So I remember, I've always, not always, but, I was in the military, I was in the Army. And then I eventually started working out with a trainer, right? And I've been working out with a physical trainer for years. And I remember, but I would never, this was the thing. So I got a couple areas I want to go here. I would put muscle on, but I would always be the same exact weight. Okay. I didn't look any different. All right. I was stronger, but I didn't look any different. So I remember asking my trainer, his name was Marlo, and he was probably the first person that actually sat me down and told me what time it was, right? All my other trainers, I do everything they told me to do. I would push what I earned. And he said, Tony, it's really based on what you eat. And I was like, what? He was like, buddy, he said, let me ask you. And this dude was ripped. Yeah. He said, how many times a week you think I work out? I was like, bro, what, 5, 6 times a week? He was like, no, 1. He said, but I eat and I eat the right stuff. And so he started, that was the first person that ever, outside of my doc, that ever started to educate. And he was like, Tony, like, go to Whole Foods and get your food there. And I remember going and looking at salmon, and it was like $30. I mean, not $30. It was whatever it was. And I was like, this is expensive, right?
Yeah. We call it whole paycheck, but
exactly. And here's my point. I remember, and he was like, unfortunately, it costs money to eat healthy. Now, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. Okay. There was no health stores or all the stuff you talked about in terms of tradition and bacon and all these things I did. I had no clue that it affected me. It had something to do. So then when I went to the doctor, and he said, you had hypertension, right? And I wasn't even going to the doctor that often, right? And I remember him saying something to me. He said, Antonio, he said, you're going to die before you get to 40. Right? Because I was eating all this wild stuff, okay? Fried stuff, all these things that you're talking about. And then I don't know what clicked. My neighbor next to me, he was an older gentleman, and he had heart disease, but he was taking medicine. And he just sat me down and said, look, man, you got to, back to your point, nobody's going to save you. He didn't say it that way, but he was like, you got to start taking care of yourself. So I started working out, and I started eating the right things. And I went back to my doctor, and he was like, what have you been doing? And I said, I've been working out. He said, look, if you're going to keep doing this, I won't even put you on any medicine, because back to your points, if you eat well, if you take care of yourself naturally, my hypertension and all those things came down. The challenge I have, Dr. Steele, is that a lot of people don't know this, and access is key. Wisdom is part of access, right? So if you live in certain areas, I mean, you're going to be a product of your environment.
100%.
Right? You're going to eat McDonald's. You see television commercials, 2 Big Macs for $7. And so people think that, and they eat that, having no clue that that's going to affect them and shorten their life. Speak to that a little bit.
Indeed. And gosh, I could speak to this from so
I
many
know we could go all out.
I know. Okay, so here's the first part, right?
Yep.
It is very much a privileged conversation to even discuss about these natural food options. Okay, so I definitely want to acknowledge that. And believe you me, I have gone in and done talks in inner city, and I have been fried. Okay, about like, so let me just throw that out there before, because that is a real thing. Even coming from California to Virginia, right? It was huge. And I don't advocate shopping at whole paycheck. People that do, God bless you. But I actually am much more locally sourced, grow your own, getting off of this food supply, right? And that's going to bring all kinds of, it's far cheaper. You control where it is, where it is. And there's so many easy, efficient ways to do it, right? So there's that. Now, let's say it's not an option to grow your own. Maybe you don't have, a bucket or a balcony or sun or whatever, right? Then your next option is going to be looking for community-supported agriculture, right? So your local farms, your local farmers markets, talking to the farms, talking to the farmers markets. There's a lot more of them now. And there's also a lot more online resources as well that are trying to connect the farmers to the people. And there's actually a lot of Black farmers as well who are willing to sell to local communities, even if they're not necessarily considered local. They can ship and that kind of thing. When I moved from Southern California, I actually had my food shipped in. Now, the cost, believe it or not, was relatively about
comparable.
The same. Yes. I mean, now, of course, it's totally different, but at the time it was very much comparable to that. So you're looking community supported agriculture, you're looking at farmers markets, then you're looking at now your neighborhood grocer, but also being mindful of where they're sourcing their fruits and vegetables, where they're sourcing their foods at, and then picking and choosing from there. And so also maybe going to a local butcher, definitely a little bit higher, but better quality. The higher the quality food, the less you're going to eat as well, because the more bioavailable, the more you're going to observe. Even though we go, oh, this is a 99-cent box of mac and cheese, right? You're going to be hungry in an hour after you eat that thing because it's just cardboard. I mean, for real, there's no nutrient value to that whatsoever. So also to think in terms of your car, which is pretty much your body's like your car, is running off of what you're feeding it. So
I
if you
love
want to
that.
be fat, sick, and nearly dead, keep it up. Keep it up. Keep
I,
eating the high fat, the high sugar, the high processed food.
Can you say that again? I want everybody to hear that exact phrase. Your body is like a car.
Yes.
Say that one more time, because again,
yes.
picture words paint pictures.
100%. So I'll break it down very easy with a car. You are fueling your car like you would your normal car, right? Are you putting crude oil in it, or are you putting refined, gas, right? Exactly. You're mostly putting sugar, salt, and all kinds of crap in it. So what's going to happen to the engine? The engine's not going to run well. It's going to run slow. It's going to clog. The engine is your metabolism. Okay.
Right.
Your metabolism is not just about your weight. It's about all the chemical processes, right? So exchanging nutrition into detoxification, which is going to go out of where? The exhaust pipe, right? So you're filling up your gas tank. It's going through the engine of the car, right? And then hopefully the waste is leaving the gas tank. But if you keep putting sugar in there, now the car is knocking. Now you've got leaks. You've got all kinds of, you know what I'm saying? You're driving around, that thing's a little rough.
Well, now the car becomes a hoopty.
Exactly. Now you're just breaking down on the side of the road, calling AAA all the time. But here, some people take care of their
point.
Yes, and some people take care of their cars better than they do their bodies.
That is especially you said breaking down, which that means you're physically breaking down and coming up with ailments. Then you're, instead of calling AAA, you calling the doctor. All right. And then it becomes a cycle over and over again.
Exactly.
So how do we, we got to have you come back, okay? Because there's a ton of stuff I want to get into. Let's move on to this, though, right? So, all the stuff you talked about, health data, and Black communities, right? The challenges they face in understanding the health data, understanding the things that you talked about, from hypertension, diabetes, hetero stuff that that comes from generation after generation. Yes. Okay.
Intergenerational trauma.
Intergenerational, right? So what's some of the things that people, because one of the things that you are very advocate of is health literacy, is people understanding, their health situation. So can you speak to that a little
100%.
bit?
So like you were talking about before, you wait until you go to the doctor. Maybe you go to the doctor every year, right? That's a lot of habits and behaviors for a whole year. Okay. And remember, your doctor is not there trying to prevent disease. I know they're probably a great person and you probably really like them, but their job is designed. They are literally waiting for that to go chase after the ambulance. Okay. Right. So they are waiting for you to break down, for them to go, oh, I got a solution. And so again, us putting our power in the hands of a physician, or in the structure of an annual visit, right, is not enough. So with remote patient monitoring, which is what we utilize in our practice, we use health data. So I teach you about your data. As an example, I had a patient earlier today, elderly woman, hypertension, right? She had no idea how to take her blood pressure. Nobody had sat down with this woman and talk. What did she have? She had one of the little wrist ones, which are very inaccurate. Right. And what did she, I said, oh, can you take because I have virtual practice. So I was like, oh, can you take your blood pressure? And she just ran around, slapped it on her wrist, sat down. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not doing this. Right. So first off is, I had to slow her down, teach her, for one, okay, we need a one that goes on your arm, right? Because that's more accurate. Plus, you need to stop, take it the same time every day, take 10 breaths. Take 10 breaths, cleansing breaths, and then take your blood pressure, right? And then, if the top number, your systolic, is a little high, that means you're dehydrated. We need more water, right? Number one cause of dehydration is what?
Alcohol.
Hypertension. No.
Okay.
Number one cause of hypertension is dehydration.
Oh,
So I
got it.
think I said it
So
all. I think I said all.
less water in your body, your blood pressure goes up.
Because sodium can't clear.
Got you. Got
right?
it. Got
so
it.
sodium builds in the system, right? And then maybe arginine or whatever. There's other mechanisms, but let's just keep it simple, right? So just teaching her that simple metric, right? Teaching her how to check her sugars, right? And then the magic is now we go, okay, so how much water are you drinking? Okay, so you're drinking this much. Okay, now we need to work up to this much. And now she can watch that number go down based off of an action that she's doing. So now she's getting positive reinforcement. And now this woman knows what her numbers need to be. She's not waiting to go to an annual visit and waiting for her white coat to tell her.
Right. She has more power in her own health situation. And I think, certain things as citizens, as human beings, we should be taught at a young age.
Yes.
And this is one of them. I mean, you just educated me on some I didn't even know. Right. And those things make a huge difference.
Huge difference.
All right. Huge difference in terms of how you look at stuff, how you see stuff, how you can be. It's just amazing, man.
Yes.
So,
and then really quick, I want to say this part. And then too, okay, so let's say you're struggling with hypertension. You go once a year. You don't like going to the doctor to begin with. So then you're there, white coat, you're stressed out. You had to go through traffic to get there. You drank a bucket of coffee before you got there. And then you go sit down in the triage. The nurse is rude to you. You're already about to, let her know what time it is. And then they're going to take your blood pressure. So of course it's going to be high. It's going to be high as gas. And so then they're going to be like, oh, your blood pressure's high. Here you go. It's such a setup. It is such a setup.
Was there a camera in the doctor's office yesterday when I was there? Oh my God. I was mad. I was nervous. I had drank coffee. Nobody said don't drink it. Right? I'm 20 minutes late because when you get there on time, they make you wait long, right?
Exactly.
I gotta go. And then I get there, and then they throw the thing on. She can barely get it on, and she's and I'm mad.
Exactly. Right. Oh. But they're making healthcare decisions off this one reading.
That's insane.
It's absolutely insane.
Speaking of readings, talk to us about what you came up with, your holistic app. Okay. Yes. And how people can dive into that.
Yes, I can track anything, right? So my app is very interactive. I have communities on there. I have just a more general population, holistic community that people can, again, health access, right? I give everything for free. I give tons of free content. So it's not like, oh, now if I don't have any money now all of a sudden, right? And so obviously there's tiers. If people want to work with me, they can. So I have an app that people can utilize. You can track anything in this app. You can track your water, your steps. It integrates with Apple Health. It integrates with all of your traditional things. You can, like, for instance, I have a ring. I got this little ring, $20 off the TikTok shop, right? And so it syncs with Apple Health. And so it tells me my heart rate. It tells me my blood pressure. It tells me all of these different metrics that then syncs into this app. So now I can take my readings over not just one day, but multiple days. I can get averages and now begin to understand, okay, so these are where my resting averages are. And this is what I need to do in order to increase that number or decrease that number. So I tend to start people. So with health data is my jam. I can look at bioenergetics, meaning this is Eastern medicine, right? So entities, trapped emotions. I have cameras and things that can assess these, right? Everything can be assessed with an objective analysis, which is something outside of me. I can look at full genetic panels. Remember, we talked about genetics only accounts for less than 20%. I can prove that, but also prevent things. So if you're concerned about dementia, hypertension, diet, all of these different things that are like the boogeyman, right? Because, oh, this is genetic, right? So we put that in there so we can put stabilizations in place. Then we look at the biochemistry, which is pretty much the accumulation of your lifestyle habits over the last, let's say, 3 to 4 months, right? And then finally, we look at remote patient monitoring. That's your accountability. What are you doing on a daily basis, and is it working or is it not working? So as we begin to stack this data, we can create personalized healthcare because that's what we need to move to. The unfortunate part about being a Black person in our healthcare system is we're excluded. They don't have any long-term data on us. They have studied us since the dawn of time. They've used us to be able to advance their healthcare system, but we actually receive 56% or 52 or 56% subpar care across 25 metrics, all across all states, worse than the South. So not only are we driving the chronic disease rates, according to the Commonwealth Fund study that just came out in 2024, we are receiving, like I said, 52% subpar care across 25 metrics. So clearly it's not working. The disease rates are going up, but our ability to receive care is going down, right? But somehow, some way, these health insurance companies have record profits every single year. Right? The health institutions have record profits every single year. Why is that? They are profiting off of our ignorance.
Right. Where can people find your app?
So you can go to my website, holisticfamilypracticeva.com. It's all over that. Also, any of my socials, Dr. Erica Steele, you can Google Dr. Erica Steele and pretty much find most of my stuff. And I have links in every bio on YouTube, on TikTok. You just click on there and it has a little button. It has a little community, super easy to find.
I mean, it sounds so user-friendly. And it seems like something that everybody can take back. Going back to what we initially started here on this episode, it's about, to your point, nobody's going to come save you. You have to be accountable for yourself. You have to self-educate. Yeah. And I think by utilizing your app provides all those things, right? At the end of the day, person still got to do it. Yes. But at the end of the day, you still got to educate yourself because, yep. We haven't been educated on these issues. And, one of the things I found is that, and I could be wrong, but people tend to be on the coast, East Coast, West Coast, are a lot more health conscious. Yeah. Versus the middle of the country, and that doesn't mean everybody, right?
But also because the bikinis are real. Like you're gonna have to get on the beach eventually, and so I mean that literally just the word beach body used to get me out of bed at 5 a.m. to go see a trainer. So, it's whatever motivates us, right?
So it's that, but also the communities on the coast. Yes. They create bike lanes. They create walking paths. Yes. They have, and I work in New York City, so there's fruit stands everywhere. Yes. There's stuff that you can at least get some exercise, eat the right things. You have I called it Whole Foods. You called it whole paychecks. All right, but they have those all over the place.
They
right?
Absolutely
so there's more access to those things, right? So. Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you this though. So, as we get ready to close, I want to pivot because obviously we're in 2024. We just had an election, and Trump has nominated, I think, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the new health and human service, whatever it is, right? Yes. And his mindset. He didn't believe in the pandemic, and I don't want to, maybe I got it wrong. He didn't believe in pandemic. He didn't believe in vaccines and stuff of that nature. Yeah. And I want to spend just a couple of minutes on this. Mm-hmm. He believes in a lot more holistic medicine, or is he anti-mainstream and comes up with more holistic things? Talk a little bit about that. And what is his appointment, if he gets confirmed, how is that going to potentially change things here in the United States?
If you like what you hear and want to join us on this journey of making uncomfortable conversations comfortable, please subscribe to a Black Executive Perspective podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe now to stay connected for more episodes that challenge, inspire, and lead the change.
Well, RFK, before he sold his soul, allegedly, he really painted himself as a do-gooder of health, right? Being in law, going after the pharmaceutical industry, going after big agriculture, trying to make sure that companies and organizations were held accountable, right? In terms of the vaccine conversation, that is a very lengthy one. With the medical apartheid, Black bodies have been used since the dawn of time to test these particular products on. So that's number one. Also, to RFK, because of being a Kennedy, he has been in rooms with people and been privy to information that we have not. He wrote a book called Fauci that was very clear. It connected Fauci to Depot in Africa. It really talked a lot about some of the different things that they did. They also, have stolen gosh only knows and test on gosh only knows, right? There's one particular piece which of course they've now discredited this doctor and everything, but there's one thing that's very, very interesting. And I think one of the things that he's pushing for, it's not that he's anti-vaccination, he wants more research, right? Dr. Wakefield, Andrew Wakefield, he's a Brit. He studied actually all of the inoculations based off of race, okay, and found that the MMR had greater propensity to create various neurological conditions in Black boys specifically at that 2-year mark, right? So in my practice has really been I'm the cleanup crew of medicine, right? And I will tell you, I have found significant amounts of Black children. In fact, I just did a consult with one yesterday where a little Black girl, after her 2-year MMR, now has a speech impediment. Okay. So of course, conventional medicine is going to tell you across the board, it's safe and effective. CDC is going to tell you, oh yeah, it's everything safe and effective. But the CDC won't tell you that they also have vested financial interest in vaccinations. So they actually make money off of the patents. So there's an issue with that. There's also an issue with the peer reviewers. The pharmaceutical industry has spent billions of dollars persuading the peer reviewers to pretty much peer review certain studies in their favor. Okay. So we have massive corruption on the CDC level, on the NIH level. And so, excuse me, the media loves to jump onto sensational headlines, right? So, oh, he's anti-vax. Oh, he worms in his brain. Oh, he takes heroin to get through school. These are legitimate things that he's done. Now, I'm not advocating. I don't think heroin was a good choice for him to say, especially as a health professional, or even in that same venture. I think his ideas are bold. My concern is his execution, because he doesn't have a public health background.
Got it.
So I'm very balanced in the sense of, even though I am a holistic doctor, if I assess a case and I see that a conventional doctor is needed, I've been able to save patients with chemo who would not have ever done chemo had they would not have trusted me and I did their full case history.
Right.
Or I got them to actually follow through on their surgery, to remove the tumor or whatever, because they were so terrified. Right. So there's a place for conventional medicine. There are certain people who are not going to give up their baked beans and fried chicken. Right. They're just not going to do it. And so for those people, we have conventional medicine to be able to help extend their life. Right. So it's not an option for every single person on the planet to be natural. A pharmaceutical is nothing more than a stabilizer. It's a tool to be used in a tool bag. Right. So I think that it's definitely going to open up new conversations. I'm just concerned about execution, especially when it comes to public health, because unfortunately we saw what Donald Trump did during the COVID, his presidency in COVID. And I wholeheartedly believe that his failure to execute properly and the massive amounts of misinformation is what cost a lot of people their lives. Right. Viruses are real. Okay. Right. There are real public health, even though I'm not a virus chaser, I love people that is their main job, and that's their pathologists are amazing. Like they love all the bugs and they'll sit around and, and God bless them. Like that's their role. I think it's understanding what role we all serve in the healthcare system and working together instead of seeing each other as adversaries.
Wow. I mean, number one, thanks for that. Number two, thank you. I mean, I could stay here and chat with you on a number of things, and we really only touched the surface on a lot of the things that we dove into. And I don't want to be selfish here, but I would love, to have you come back.
Yes.
and dive in periodically, you know, on the show, and we can dive in deeper. You can each keep educating all of us on these things that are very important, just not from a holistic standpoint, a conventional standpoint, but also from a policy and a political standpoint as well, because those things do matter. Final thoughts, my friend. What do you want to leave with the audience, Dr. Steele?
I think people get really overwhelmed with it. I think the same thing with success, right? But you cannot have one without the other. You cannot have success external unless you have healthy mental, emotional, physical. So just as much as you invest in your education, or you invest in a house, or you invest in a car or a child or whatever, you must invest in your health, right? Now, that doesn't mean you got to go out and spend money on every, you know, and people get crazy, right? It's really the very basic things, the easy things, the simple things that are actually the most effective. We've gotten so far away from being in our little huts back in our tribes. We have gotten so far from it, and we really have to begin to challenge this Eurocentric thinking and this colonized healthcare system that we are now thrust into. And so I think it definitely looks at a critical lens of questioning, asking your doctor the hard questions. If they get upset, if they storm out, if they, you know, gaslight, just fire them and find another one. There's like a ton of them out there. I mean, for real, you know, so because they're, us as doctors, we're here to work for you. Okay.
Right.
Not the other way around. I know this idea, oh, we put our pants legs up. And let me tell you, I've been to enough conferences to tell you there are some dumb doctors. There are some, I don't care if you have a degree or not, you know your body better than anybody else on the planet. So don't you let any other human being try to tell you what's not going on, because unfortunately I've seen strokes that have been missed. I've seen heart attacks that have been missed. I've seen all kinds of different life-threatening issues that have been missed simply because of the doctor's unconscious bias. So another reason why taking ownership of your health, paying attention to your body, you know, every single day checking in, that little 15-minute meditation is not just about your mental health. It's about like, okay, are my toes still where they need to be? Are my fingers still where they need to be? How's my back doing? How's my hip doing? You know what I'm saying? Do I need anything? You know, just checking in with yourself instead of, oh, now this person needs something. That person, people literally roll out of bed in survival mode. And so taking back your time, taking back your health, and making choices that are going to help you long term. And that may mean saying no, firing people, so, you know, maybe I'm going to pass on this extra portion of whatever, you know, really making different choices, because every single moment where they're building health or building disease, the choice is up to us.
Well, number one, I think we made a good choice in terms of having you come on as a guest for a Black Executive Perspective podcast. Dr. Erica Steele, thank you for all your wisdom, your charm, your personality, your education. It has been fabulous. And I hope you're open to coming back and speaking to the audience and continue to educate us. And more importantly, we want you to stay right there, because you're going to help us with our call to action. So I think it's now time for
Tony's Tidbit.
So as you know, the tidbit is always about our episode. So today's tidbit is, I quote, "Healing is a marathon, not a sprint. Patience and holistic strategies lead to lasting health and well-being. In redefining success, we find strength in community, balance in life, and peace in our hearts." And you heard a lot of that from Dr. Erica Steele today. So again, we want to thank her. And we want to remind you to make sure that you do not miss this week's Need to Know by Dr. Nasenga Burton on the Black Executive Perspective podcast. Dr. Burton dives into the timely and crucial topics that shape our community and world. So you definitely want to tune in and gain insight to deepen your understanding of the issues that matter. You don't want to miss it every Thursday on the Black Executive Perspective podcast. Now, it's time for BEP's call to action. And if you are a current listener or a watcher of BEP, you know exactly what our goals are. If this is your first time listening and watching, our goal is to eliminate all forms of discrimination. And to achieve this, we have created this acronym we call LESS, LESS. We're going to walk you through LESS, because as Dr. Steele said earlier about her, these are things that you can do that's in your control to eliminate all forms of discrimination. Dr. Steele, kick us off.
Yes. So first we'll start off with L, which stands for learn. So we definitely want to educate ourselves about racial and cultural nuances, but because we're talking about health, really learning about your health, what works, what doesn't work, and just slowly incorporating these things as time goes on and being a lifelong learner when it comes to all things.
Absolutely. And then after you learn, E stands for empathy. Now, since you've learned, now you should be more empathetic to your friends and family and coworkers, because now you understand what they've been going through.
Yes, exactly. So S, which stands for share. Now you're going to share all of the exciting tools, techniques, insights. You're going to definitely start prophetizing to everybody around you because you're so excited about all the things you've learned.
Absolutely. And then the final S stands for stop. You want to actively stop discrimination as it comes into your path. So if you're at the Thanksgiving Day table or the Christmas table or Sunday dinner and Uncle John says something that's inappropriate, you say, Uncle John, we don't believe that. We don't say that. And you stop it right there. So if everyone can incorporate less, LESS, will build a more fair, more understanding world, and we'll be able to see the change that we want to see, because less will become more. Don't forget to check out our next episode on the Black Executive Perspective podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow us on our social channels of LinkedIn, X, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at a Black Exec. For our fabulous, multi-hyphenated Dr. Erica Steele, we want to thank her for joining. I'm Tony Tidbit. We talked about it today. We learned about it today. We even laughed a little bit about it today. But more importantly, we love you. And guess what? We're out.
A Black Executive Perspective.